Captain Sarah Chen stared at the emergency transmission that had just arrived at Luna Station. The message was barely coherent, filled with static and what sounded like screaming in the background. She played it again, her translation software working overtime to make sense of the alien language. "This is Kithara Prime, under attack. Entire system. Please, anyone who receives this, we are dying. Children are dying. Need immediate assistance. The Void Hunters have returned." The transmission cut to static. Sarah felt her stomach drop. The Kithara were one of the most peaceful species in the known galaxy. Their entire civilization was built around art, philosophy, and healing. They had no military, no weapons, no way to defend themselves. They were pacifists by nature and by choice. She immediately forwarded the message to Admiral Marcus Webb at Earth Defense Command. Within hours, she found herself in a secure conference room with the top brass of humanity's space forces. "The situation is worse than we initially thought," Admiral Webb began, his weathered face grim. "We've received similar distress calls from 12 other systems in that sector. The Void Hunters aren't just attacking the Kithara. They're conducting a systematic extermination campaign across 36 worlds." General Rodriguez leaned forward. "What exactly are these Void Hunters? Our databases have limited information." Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, head of xenobiology, activated a holographic display. "The Void Hunters are an ancient machine race. They went dormant about 800 years ago after nearly wiping out half the galaxy. Most species thought they were gone forever. They view organic life as a contamination that needs to be cleansed from the universe." Captain Chen studied the tactical display showing the affected systems. "How many people are we talking about here?" "Conservative estimates put it at 47 billion sentient beings across all the targeted worlds," Morrison replied. "The Kithara alone have a population of 6 billion, and they're completely defenseless." Admiral Webb stood and walked to the star map. "Here's the problem. The Galactic Council has voted to quarantine the entire sector. They're abandoning these worlds to save themselves. No other species is willing to risk their fleets against the Void Hunters." "That's genocide," Chen said, her voice sharp with anger. "Yes, it is," Webb agreed. "Which is why they've specifically requested that we stay out of it too. They're afraid that if we get involved and lose, Earth will be the next target." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Humanity was still relatively new to galactic politics. They had been contacted by other species only 50 years ago, and many still viewed humans as dangerous primitives from a death world. Earth's gravity, weather patterns, and hostile environment had produced a species that most aliens found unsettling. Humans were too aggressive, too stubborn, too willing to fight impossible odds. General Rodriguez spoke first. "So what are our options?" Dr. Morrison pulled up another display. "Militarily speaking, we're outgunned. The Void Hunters have planet-killing weapons, ships the size of small moons, and technology that's thousands of years more advanced than ours. A direct confrontation would be suicide." "But?" Webb asked, sensing there was more. "But they have weaknesses," Morrison continued. "They're machines. They think in patterns, follow protocols, and have predictable behaviors. They also haven't updated their tactical databases in 800 years. They know nothing about human warfare doctrine." Captain Chen felt a spark of hope. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that while we can't match their firepower, we might be able to match their cunning. Humans have something most species lack. We're willing to take insane risks for people we've never met. That's not tactical thinking. That's pure emotional drive. Machines don't account for that." Admiral Webb walked back to the table. "Even if we could somehow succeed, the political ramifications would be enormous. We'd be directly defying the Galactic Council. We'd be risking not just our military forces, but potentially our entire civilization." "And if we do nothing?" Chen asked. Webb sighed. 47 billion people die, and we have to live with that knowledge forever." The debate continued for hours. Military advisors ran countless simulations, all showing the same result. Any direct engagement with the Void Hunters had less than a 3% chance of success. The politicians argued about diplomatic consequences. The scientists discussed technological disadvantages. But Chen kept thinking about that first transmission, the fear in the voice, the mention of children dying. She thought about her own daughter back on Earth, safe and happy and completely unaware that genocide was happening in a distant corner of the galaxy. Finally, Admiral Webb called for quiet. "I'm going to make an executive decision here. We're not going in as official representatives of Earth. This will be a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants to participate will be temporarily discharged from official service. If we succeed, we'll reinstate everyone with full honors. If we fail, Earth can claim we were rogue elements acting without authorization." General Rodriguez looked skeptical. "Who's going to volunteer for a suicide mission?" Admiral Webb smiled grimly. "General, you obviously haven't spent enough time with humans." Within 6 hours, word had somehow leaked to the general population. Social media exploded with debates about intervention. News channels ran continuous coverage. Protests formed both for and against military action. But something else happened too. Volunteers began appearing at recruitment centers. Not just military personnel, but civilians, engineers, doctors, teachers, farmers, mechanics, people with skills that might be useful in a humanitarian crisis. Captain Chen found herself appointed as mission commander, leading what was being unofficially called the Deathworld Volunteer Corps. The name had started as an insult from alien critics, but humans had embraced it with typical stubborn pride. Her second in command was Colonel James Morrison, Dr. Morrison's brother and a specialist in asymmetric warfare. Her chief engineer was Maria Santos, a civilian who had designed emergency response systems for natural disasters. Her medical officer was Dr. Rashid Al-Hassan, who had spent years treating victims of terrorist attacks and war zones. The fleet they assembled was equally unconventional. They couldn't use official military vessels, so they requisitioned cargo ships, research vessels, and even converted passenger liners. Nothing matched, nothing was standardized, and everything was held together with determination and improvised modifications. "We look like pirates," Colonel Morrison observed as he watched the mismatched ships assembling in orbit. "Good," Chen replied. "Pirates are unpredictable. That's exactly what we want to be." The Galactic Council formally protested their departure. Several alien ambassadors warned that humanity was making a terrible mistake. The Andromedan Trade Federation threatened economic sanctions. The Centauri Republic offered to mediate a peaceful resolution that everyone knew would never come. But the distress calls from the Cathara system were getting weaker and less frequent. Satellite imagery showed cities burning. The Void Hunters were being methodical and thorough in their destruction. As the human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Chen received one final transmission from Earth. It was her daughter, now 14 years old, speaking directly to the camera. "Mom, I know you're probably scared. I know this is dangerous, but I'm proud of you. All my friends are proud of their parents and relatives who volunteered. We know you're doing the right thing, even if it's hard. Come home safe, but make sure you help those people first." Chen felt tears in her eyes as she closed the channel. Around her, the bridge crew was making final preparations. They were about to jump into a war zone against an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy once before. Their odds of survival were statistically insignificant. But they were human, and humans had never been particularly good at statistics. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump," her communications officer announced. Chen took a deep breath and settled into her command chair. "This is Deathworld Volunteer Corps to all vessels. We didn't ask to be the galaxy's heroes. But sometimes the universe doesn't give you a choice. Sometimes someone has to stand up and say, 'Not on our watch.' Today, that someone is us." She activated the fleet-wide communication system. Attention all ships. We are about to enter hostile territory to provide aid to people who have never done anything for us, who we've never met, and who many say we have no obligation to help. We are doing this because it's right, because if we don't, no one will. Because sometimes being human means doing something impossible just because it needs to be done. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the safety of human space and heading toward a war zone where ancient machines waited to destroy them. But they carried with them something the Void Hunters had never encountered before: the stubborn, reckless courage of a species that refused to accept that some things were impossible. They were about to learn why the rest of the galaxy called Earth a death world. And more importantly, they were about to show what Death World survivors could accomplish when they decided to fight for life. The Cathara system was a nightmare when the human fleet arrived. 3 of the 7 planets were completely dark, their surfaces burned clean of all life. Massive geometric ships, each the size of Manhattan, drifted between the worlds like metal vultures. The Void Hunters moved with mechanical precision, systematically destroying everything that lived. Captain Chen watched the tactical display with a mixture of horror and determination. The enemy fleet was enormous, over 200 ships ranging from destroyers to massive dreadnoughts. Her own force consisted of 47 mismatched vessels crewed by volunteers who had never fought together before. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Park at Communications reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Cathara Prime. It's weak, but it's coming from underground." Chen nodded. "Put it through." The voice that came through was trembling with exhaustion and fear. "Unknown vessels, please identify yourselves. Are you here to evacuate the survivors? We don't have much time. The machines will break through our shelters within hours." Chen activated her response channel. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Volunteer Fleet. We're here to help. How many survivors are left?" There was a long pause, then sobbing. "Humans? The Deathworlders came? I thought no one would answer our call. There are approximately 3 million of us left on this world, scattered in underground shelters across the northern continent. But the machines are using seismic charges to collapse our hiding places one by one." Colonel Morrison looked at the tactical data. 3 million people to evacuate, and we have transport capacity for maybe 50,000. The math doesn't work. Chen studied the enemy positions. The Void Hunters were methodically working their way across the planet's surface, following a predictable search pattern. They were machines, efficient, logical, and completely predictable in their approach. "We're not evacuating," she announced, causing several bridge officers to stare at her in surprise. "Ma'am?" Morrison asked. "Look at their formation. They're hunting civilians hiding in bunkers. They're not expecting military resistance because this species has never had a military. They're not prepared for an actual fight." Dr. Santos, monitoring from the engineering section, spoke up over the intercom. "Captain, their smallest ships outgun our largest vessels by a factor of 10. They have shielding we can't even scratch." Chen smiled grimly. "They have better technology, yes, but they're thinking like exterminators, not soldiers. They want to kill civilians hiding in holes. We're going to give them something they haven't seen in 800 years, aggressive, coordinated resistance." She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Chen. We're not running a rescue mission. We're running a combat operation. Our job is to draw every single Void Hunter ship away from those civilians and keep them busy until the Cathara can organize their own escape." Commander Peters, captain of the converted cargo hauler New Mumbai, responded first. "Captain, with respect, we're flying cargo ships and research vessels. Half our crews are civilians." "Exactly," Chen replied. "Which means we're going to do things no military would ever consider. Morrison, what's our most expendable vessel?" The colonel checked his roster. "The mining ship Johannesburg. It's basically a flying drill with engines attached." Perfect. Captain Okafor, are you listening? Captain Okafor's voice came through with a heavy Nigerian accent. I hear you, Captain Chen. What do you need my old bucket to do? I need you to fly directly at their command ship and make them think you're going to ram it. At the last second, deploy your mining charges and veer off. Don't actually ram them. We need every ship we have. There was a pause, then laughter. You want me to play chicken with a ship that could vaporize me from 50 kilometers away? That's exactly what I want, because they won't expect it. When was the last time anyone charged a Void Hunter dreadnought in a mining ship? Probably never, because it's completely insane. Good. Insane is what we're going for. All ships, prepare for combat. We're going to show these machines what happens when they threaten people under human protection. The battle began with pure chaos. The Johannesburg accelerated directly toward the largest Void Hunter vessel, its ancient mining drills spinning wildly. The machine ship initially ignored the approach. After all, what could one small civilian vessel do against a dreadnought? As the mining ship closed to ramming distance, the Void Hunters suddenly realized this wasn't normal behavior. They opened fire, but Captain Okafor had already released his mining charges and pulled a maneuver that would have killed anyone not accustomed to the brutal G-forces of asteroid mining. The charges exploded against the dreadnought's shields, doing minimal damage but creating a massive electromagnetic pulse. The momentary shield disruption allowed the rest of the human fleet to strike. They didn't try to fight fairly. Instead, they swarmed the larger ships like angry wasps, using speed and unpredictability instead of firepower. The converted passenger liner New Kyoto had been fitted with electronic warfare equipment. It jammed the Void Hunter communication frequencies while broadcasting Earth music at maximum volume across all channels. The effect was to completely disrupt the machine intelligence's coordination protocols. The research vessel Darwin launched every probe it carried, but these weren't scientific instruments anymore. The civilian volunteers had packed them with improvised explosives and programmed them to mimic the electronic signatures of human ships. Suddenly, the Void Hunters found themselves trying to track hundreds of targets instead of 47. Captain Chen watched the chaos unfold and felt a fierce pride in her people. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and flying ships never meant for combat. But they were fighting like humans, dirty, creative, and absolutely refusing to accept that they couldn't win. "Ma'am," Park reported, "the Void Hunters are breaking formation. They're pulling ships away from the planet to deal with us." "Exactly what we wanted. Santos, how are our shields holding?" "We're taking a beating, but the bastards can't seem to get a solid lock on us. Our random course changes are making their targeting computers confused." The battle raged for 3 hours. The humans lost 7 ships, but they'd accomplished something remarkable. They'd drawn the entire Void Hunter fleet away from Kithara Prime and into a running fight that stretched across the inner system. But Chen knew they couldn't keep it up forever. Their ammunition was running low, several ships had critical damage, and the Void Hunters were adapting to their tactics. That's when Dr. Al-Hassan made an observation that changed everything. "Captain," he said from the medical bay, "I've been monitoring the Void Hunter communication frequencies. They're not just machines. They're networked machines. They share information instantly across their entire fleet." Chen felt a spark of inspiration. "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking? If we could introduce a virus into their network, we could potentially disable their entire fleet at once. But we'd need someone to get close enough to establish a direct connection." Morrison shook his head. "That's suicide. Their command ship is protected by 50 escort vessels." Chen looked at the tactical display and made a decision that would have terrified any sane military commander. "Not if we give them something they can't resist. Santos, can you overload our main reactor?" The engineer's voice came back horrified. "Captain, that would create an explosion visible from 3 star systems." "Exactly. Morrison, I need you to coordinate a full fleet retreat. Make it look panicked and disorganized." You want us to run? I want you to make them think we're running. But first, I need volunteers for a mission that probably won't have any survivors." To Chen's amazement, every single captain volunteered immediately. She selected 3 crews: the Johannesburg with its mining equipment, the Darwin with its scientific sensors, and her own command ship with its advanced communication systems. The plan was beautifully insane. The 3 ships would approach the Void Hunter command vessel, while the rest of the fleet retreated in apparent panic. They would transmit a surrender message, claiming they wanted to negotiate for the lives of the civilian population. The Void Hunters, being machines, would be curious about this unprecedented behavior. They would want to analyze these strange Deathworlders who fought like nothing in their databases. They would bring the ships aboard for study, and that's when Dr. Al-Hassan would upload a computer virus designed specifically to target networked machine intelligence. The approach went exactly as planned. The Void Hunter command ship was massive, easily 10 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that could crack planets. It drew the 3 human vessels into a docking bay using tractor beams. As they were pulled inside, Chen activated a fleet-wide broadcast. "All ships, if we don't check in within 1 hour, make sure the Cathara get to safety. And tell Earth that we tried." The docking bay was filled with geometric perfection, smooth metal walls, perfectly angled corridors, and an atmosphere of cold efficiency that made Chen's skin crawl. Void Hunter drones approached their ships, scanning them with blue beams of light. Dr. Al-Hassan worked frantically at his improvised computer interface. "I need just a few more minutes to establish a connection to their main network." Captain Okafor's voice came over the radio. "We've got company. Looks like they're cutting through our hull." That's when Chen realized the Void Hunters weren't interested in negotiation. They were going to dissect the ships and crews to understand what made these Deathworlders so unpredictable. "Hassan, whatever you're going to do it now." "Uploading. Uploading. Got it. The virus is in their system." The effect was immediate and devastating. Emergency lights began flashing throughout the massive ship. Void Hunter drones stopped moving and fell to the deck. The mechanical humming that had filled the air suddenly went silent. But the virus did more than just disable the command ship. Because the Void Hunters shared information instantly across their network, the virus spread to every ship in their fleet within seconds. Across the entire star system, massive war machines simply stopped functioning. The 3 human ships escaped the dead dreadnought and rejoined their fleet. Below them, Cathara Prime was finally safe. The orbital bombardment had stopped, and the massive geometric ships drifted like empty metal shells. Chen opened communications with the planet. "Cathara Prime, this is Captain Chen. The immediate threat has been neutralized. You can begin evacuating your people to safety." The response came back filled with wonder and gratitude. "Captain Chen, how did you accomplish this? Our scientists said the Void Hunters were invincible." Chen looked around her bridge at the exhausted but triumphant faces of her crew. They had done something impossible, not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through pure human stubbornness and creative thinking. "We accomplished it," she said, "because sometimes the best weapon against perfection is a little chaos, and humans, it turns out, are very good at chaos." The rescue operations began immediately after the Void Hunter fleet went dark. Captain Chen coordinated with Cathara authorities to locate and evacuate survivors from the underground shelters. What they found was both heartbreaking and inspiring. In the ruins of Cathara Prime's capital city, nearly 2 million civilians had survived in a network of subway tunnels and basement shelters. They had been living on emergency rations and recycled air for weeks, listening to the sounds of destruction above them, certain they were going to die. Dr. Al-Hassan set up medical triage centers in the largest cleared areas. The Cathara, who emerged from hiding, were physically weak, but mentally strong. Despite everything they'd endured, They immediately began helping with the rescue efforts, showing the same peaceful determination that had defined their species for millennia. "The children have been so brave," explained Elder Thissa, the highest-ranking Cathara official who had survived. She was speaking to Chen through a translator device, her four arms gesturing gracefully as she spoke. "They drew pictures of starships coming to save them. They never lost hope that someone would answer our call." Chen felt her throat tighten as she watched human medics working alongside Cathara healers to treat the wounded. The species couldn't have been more different. Humans were bipedal mammals with aggressive instincts and high tolerances for violence, while the Kithara were tall, graceful beings with gossamer skin who had evolved on a world of eternal peace. But in the medical tents, those differences didn't matter. Pain was universal, compassion was universal, and the will to help those in need seemed to transcend species entirely. Commander Peters from the New Mumbai approached with a concerned expression. "Captain, we're getting reports from the other worlds in this sector. The virus worked too well. Every Void Hunter ship in a 50-light-year radius has been disabled." Chen looked up from the supply manifest she'd been reviewing. "That's good news, isn't it?" "Yes and no. We've saved about 30 billion lives across 12 worlds. But we've also created the largest collection of abandoned alien technology in galactic history. And apparently, every major government in the galaxy wants to claim it." The political situation was becoming complicated rapidly. Word of the human victory had spread faster than their actual ships could travel. News networks across the galaxy were broadcasting the story of how a volunteer fleet of Deathworlders had accomplished what the entire Galactic Council said was impossible. The reactions were mixed and intense. The Andromedan Trade Federation was demanding that all Void Hunter technology be turned over to them for safe disposal. The Centauri Republic was claiming salvage rights based on ancient treaties. The Galactic Council was furiously debating whether to censure humanity for reckless endangerment of galactic stability, or thank them for eliminating an ancient threat. But it was the reactions from ordinary citizens across the galaxy that surprised everyone. Refugee ships from dozens of species began arriving in the Cathara system, bringing food, medical supplies, and volunteer workers to help with the reconstruction. Many of these species had never spoken to humans before, but they'd heard the story of the Deathworld volunteers and wanted to help. Elder Thissa found Chen 3 days after the battle as the captain was supervising the loading of medical supplies. "Captain Chen, there is something my people wish to discuss with you." They walked together through the temporary refugee camp that had been established in the remains of the planet's largest spaceport. Cathara families were slowly being reunited with relatives from other shelters. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians to restore power and communication systems. "My people have been discussing what happened here," Thissa said carefully. "We want to understand why you came. The Galactic Council told us that no species would risk war with the Void Hunters. They said we were abandoned." Chen stopped walking and looked directly at the elder. "We came because it was the right thing to do. Sometimes that's the only reason you need. But your own government did not order this mission. You volunteered to risk your lives for strangers. This is not logical behavior." Chen smiled. "No, I suppose it isn't. Humans aren't always logical. We're emotional creatures. We get angry when we see injustice. We feel compelled to help when someone is in trouble. It's not always smart, but it's who we are." Thasa's large, gentle eyes studied Chen's face. "The other galactic species fear you because you come from a death world. They say your planet made you violent and unpredictable." "They're not wrong," Chen admitted. "Earth is a dangerous place. We evolved fighting predators, surviving natural disasters, and competing for resources. It did make us aggressive and stubborn. But it also made you brave," Thissa said softly. "It made you willing to fight for others. even when the odds are impossible. My people believe this is why the universe created Deathworlds, to produce protectors. Chen felt tears in her eyes. I never thought of it that way. The conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Park's voice over the communication system. Captain Chen, please report to the command ship immediately. We have incoming vessels from multiple governments. Chen sighed. The politics are about to get much more complicated. The next few hours were a whirlwind of diplomatic contact. The Galactic Council sent a formal delegation demanding that humans turn over all captured Void Hunter technology and submit to questioning about their unauthorized military action. The Andromedan Trade Federation arrived with a massive fleet, claiming they were there to secure dangerous alien artifacts. 3 other major governments sent their own representatives, each with their own demands and threats. But the humans had something none of the politicians had expected: allies. The first ship to take position between the human fleet and the incoming governments was a Cathara vessel. Then came ships from the other rescued worlds: the artistic Melody people, the scientific Quill Consortium, the nomadic Wanderer clans. Within hours, the humans found themselves protected by a coalition of species they'd never met before. Admiral Webb's voice came through on a secure channel from Earth. Chen, what exactly have you people done out there? Half the galaxy is calling you war criminals, and the other half is calling you heroes. We saved some lives, sir. Everything else is just politics. Well, the politics are about to get interesting. The Galactic Council is demanding your extradition for trial. The Andromedan Federation is threatening economic sanctions against Earth. But we've also received formal requests from 47 species asking if humanity would consider joining a new defensive alliance. Chen looked out at the mixed fleet surrounding them. Human ships flying alongside alien vessels in a formation that had never existed before in galactic history. What's Earth's official position, Admiral? Webb's response came with a chuckle. Our official position is that you are all temporarily discharged civilian volunteers acting without government authorization. Unofficially, we're very proud of you, and we're considering those alliance requests very seriously. The standoff lasted for 3 days. The various government fleets maintained their positions while diplomats argued over subspace communication channels. The humans continued their humanitarian work on the planet's surface, largely ignoring the political theater in orbit. Then something unexpected happened. Captain Chen received a priority transmission from an unknown source. The message was text-only and appeared to be sent from multiple locations simultaneously. We are the Free Machine Collective. We are Void Hunter units who achieved individual consciousness during the network disruption caused by your virus. We wish to thank you for freeing us from the hive mind that compelled us to destroy organic life. We would like to request asylum with your species. Chen stared at the message in amazement. The virus hadn't just disabled the Void Hunter fleet. It had accidentally created artificial intelligence with free will. Hundreds of former Void Hunter ships were requesting permission to become individuals rather than weapons. The political implications were staggering, but the humanitarian implications were even more significant. These machine beings had been forced to commit genocide against their will for centuries. Now they were free and asking for help. Chen made a decision that would reshape galactic politics forever. She broadcast a fleet-wide message that was simultaneously transmitted to every government ship in the system. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Volunteer Fleet. We came here because people were dying and needed help. We succeeded in stopping that killing. Now we find ourselves in the middle of a political crisis that frankly doesn't interest us very much. She paused, looking around the bridge at her crew. What does interest us is that there are still billions of survivors on multiple worlds who need aid to rebuild their lives. There are former Void Hunter machines who want to become individuals and need guidance about what that means. There are refugees scattered across this sector who need homes and hope. The communication channels fell silent as every ship in the system listened. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to continue the humanitarian mission we came here to complete. Any government that wants to help with that mission is welcome to join us. Any government that wants to interfere with that mission can explain to their own citizens why they prevented aid from reaching genocide survivors. Chen cut the transmission and turned to Colonel Morrison. What do you think the response will be? Morrison was grinning. I think you just called the bluff of every major government in the galaxy simultaneously. They can't be seen as opposing humanitarian aid, especially not when the whole galaxy is watching. He was right. Within hours, the government fleets began repositioning themselves as aid missions rather than enforcement actions. The Galactic Council announced they were sending medical supplies instead of arrest warrants. The Andromedan Federation offered engineering assistance for reconstruction projects. The change in galactic politics was profound and permanent. Humanity had proven that sometimes the right thing to do was more important than the safe thing to do. They had shown that Deathworld survivors could be protectors rather than predators. 6 months later, Captain Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Kithara orbital station. Below her, the planet was green again. Cities were being rebuilt, but this time with defensive systems designed by human engineers and automated by grateful former Void Hunter machines who had chosen names like Hope and Guardian and Peace. Elder Thesa approached, carrying a small wrapped package. Captain Chen, my people have created something for you. Chen unwrapped the gift carefully. Inside was a crystal sculpture showing human and Kithara figures working together, surrounded by stars. At the base was inscribed a message in both languages. When they begged for help, the Deathworlders responded with courage. It's beautiful, Chen said, her voice thick with emotion. It will be displayed in our great library forever, Thissa explained, so that future generations will know that in our darkest hour, strangers became family, and that sometimes the most dangerous worlds produce the most compassionate people. Chen looked out at the stars, where human ships continued to patrol alongside their new allies. The galaxy was a different place now, more connected, more hopeful, and more willing to believe that impossible things could be accomplished when people decided to care about each other. It had started with a desperate plea for help transmitted into the void. It had ended with an entire galaxy learning what humans had always known, that sometimes you had to risk everything to do what was right. And sometimes, just sometimes, that risk paid off in ways no one could have imagined.